All right, history fans, buckle up. We're about to take a deep dive into a life story that reads more like an opera than a history book, the life of Queen Christina of Sweden. And the best part, our source material is her very own Wikipedia page, proof that you don't need dusty archives to uncover some seriously juicy history.
It's true. Wikipedia, for all its quirks, can be a treasure trove.
So, Queen Christina, she was a ruler who defied expectations at every turn. But to really grasp the enigma that was Christina, we need to rewind to 17th century Europe, a continent engulfed in the chaos of the 30 Years' War. Sweden, surprisingly enough, emerges from this turmoil as a major power.
A major power with a lot to prove.
Exactly. And it's right in the thick of this power struggle that our leading lady Christina makes her grand entrance in 1626. Now, her birth was, let's just say it was anything but conventional. Her father, King Gustav II Adolf, desperately wanted a son, a male heir, to secure the throne. Instead, he gets Christina.
And not just any baby girl.
Oh, no. According to accounts, she was a hairy baby with a surprisingly deep voice for a newborn. Talk about an awkward moment in the royal delivery room.
You can imagine the whispers. It speaks volumes about the rigid gender roles of that era.
Oh, absolutely. But here's where Gustav throws everyone for a loop. Instead of trying to force Christina into the typical princess mold, he embraces the unexpected. He decides she'll be raised with the same education and training usually reserved for princes.
A radical move for the time.
Totally. We're talking intensive tutoring in languages Latin, Greek, you name it. Philosophy, history, military strategy. He threw the whole princely education playbook at her.
It's a fascinating glimpse into Gustav's character. He seemed to recognize and even encourage Christina's intellectual curiosity.
Especially when you contrast him with Christina's mother, Maria Eleonora Brandenburg.
Yeah.
She was, well, let's just say she wasn't exactly winning any Mother of the Year awards.
Indeed. While young Christina was off conquering her studies, Maria Eleonora remained rather distant, fixated on, shall we say, the more macabre aspects of life.
Like keeping Gustav's embalmed heart close by.
Exactly. Not exactly the picture of a warm and fuzzy upbringing.
Not quite. But this stark difference between her parents really highlights Christina's own leanings. She didn't just tolerate her rigorous education, she thrived on it. It was like she had this insatiable thirst for knowledge, and it would go on to shape her destiny in some pretty unexpected ways. So imagine this. While other princesses were off learning courtly etiquette and maybe how to play a lute, Christina's idea of a grand old time was staying up late, debating philosophy with the best minds in Europe.
Oh, absolutely. And we're not just talking about casual reading here. We're talking fluency in 8 languages, a deep, genuine fascination with complex subjects like astronomy and philosophy. Her correspondence network read like a who's who of the European intellectual elite.
She was basically running her own personal TED Talk, centuries before TED Talks were even a thing.
Exactly. And she didn't shy away from challenging these great minds either. Take, for example, her invitation to René Descartes.
Oh yeah, the famous philosopher.
The one and only. She invites him to be her personal tutor.
I can only imagine what Descartes thought about that. Packing up his bags and heading to Sweden in the dead of winter to tutor a queen.
Well, legend has it that he wasn't exactly thrilled about the whole thing, especially when their cozy fireside chats turned into 5 a.m. philosophy marathons in a freezing cold castle. Apparently, Christina was not one to sleep in.
I bet. That's some serious dedication to knowledge.
Yeah.
But it seems like their personalities clashed a bit, right?
They did. Christina, with her deep grounding in the classics, found Descartes' mechanistic worldview a little too, how shall we say, rational. And poor Descartes, I imagine, just wanted a good night's sleep.
It's kind of a shame. I would love to have been a fly on the wall for those late-night debates. But it does highlight something important about Christina's intellectual approach. She wasn't content just absorbing information like a sponge. She wanted to dissect it, challenge it, and really make it her own.
Precisely. And this intellectual hunger, it wasn't confined to her personal studies either. Christina envisioned transforming Stockholm into the Athens of the North.
A lofty goal.
Ambitious, for sure. She wanted to make it an unrivaled cultural hub, drawing in the best artists, writers, thinkers, you name it.
And she very nearly pulled it off, didn't she?
She really did. Under her reign, the Swedish court became this melting pot of brilliant minds from across Europe.
All thanks to Christina and her passion for knowledge.
And let's not forget her personal art and book collection.
Yeah, that was legendary.
One of the most impressive in all of Europe. And she wasn't one to hoard these treasures either. Christina was incredibly generous, opening up her collection to scholars, artists, anyone who shared her passion. We're talking masterpieces by Titian, Raphael, works that would be considered priceless today, all
Yeah.
because she genuinely wanted to nurture a culture of learning and appreciation.
It's a side of her that often gets overlooked,
Yeah.
especially when you consider the, shall we say, more scandalous chapters of her reign.
Ah, yes. Because it wasn't all philosophy and art patronage with Queen Christina, was it? Her rule was very much a reflection of a queen herself, full of contradictions.
Because Christina's reign, let's just say it had its fair share of plot twists. We're talking courtly intrigue, controversial decisions, and even a murder mystery or two thrown in for good measure.
Oh, absolutely.
Where do we even begin?
Well, we could start with the rather dramatic execution of Arnold Johann Messenius. He was a high-ranking court official accused of treason against Christina.
Treason is serious business, especially back then.
Exactly. But it wasn't just the accusation itself. It was the severity of the punishment and the rumors swirling around Christina's motives that really did the damage.
What kind of rumors?
People whispered that Christina prioritized her own amusement, her sport and pleasure, over her royal duties. Whether those rumors were true or not, the perception stuck, and it really tarnished her image.
I bet. And then, to make matters even more complicated, she drops another bombshell, her conversion to Catholicism.
Not exactly a subtle move for the queen of a staunchly Protestant nation like Sweden.
Yeah, talk about a way to shake things up. But it wasn't just a personal decision, was it? It had huge political ramifications.
Massive implications. It basically called into question the very foundation of Swedish identity. And ultimately, it played a significant role in her shocking decision to abdicate the throne in 1654.
She chose personal freedom over the weight of the crown.
She did.
I can only imagine the uproar that caused. But she didn't just disappear after giving up her crown.
Oh, far from it. This is Christina we're talking about. She embraced her new life in Rome with just as much passion and zeal as she had everything else.
And Rome at that time was quite the place to be.
It was the center of the Catholic world. Art, music, and intellectual discourse were flourishing, and Christina, she dove right back into the thick of it.
In her typical unapologetic fashion.
Precisely. In fact, her palace in Rome quickly became this haven for artists, musicians, thinkers, you name it.
Kind of like her own personal salon.
Exactly. She was a major patron of the arts. For example, her support was instrumental in the careers of composers like Arcangelo Corelli and Alessandro Scarlatti.
Those are some big names in Baroque music.
They are. And if you've ever been swept away by one of their masterpieces, you have Christina, in part, to thank for it. She was a true champion of creative talent.
Let's not forget her own love of theater.
Oh, yes. That was a lifelong passion. And again, she wasn't content with just being a spectator. She went and established one of the first public theaters in Rome.
Really? In the heart of the Catholic world?
Right under their noses. And get this, she even challenged convention by allowing women to perform on stage.
That's our Christina, always pushing boundaries and challenging norms.
Always.
But her time in Rome wasn't all sunshine and roses, was it?
Unfortunately, no.
There's that murder mystery we mentioned earlier.
The murder of Gianna Rinaldo Monaldeschi. It's a dark chapter in Christina's story, one that continues to fascinate and horrify historians to this day.
So who was Monaldeschi?
He was a member of Christina's court in Rome.
And she had him murdered.
Well, the exact circumstances surrounding his death are still shrouded in mystery. Some accounts suggest he betrayed her trust, perhaps leaking confidential letters. Others paint Christina as a vengeful queen who took justice into her own hands.
It sounds like something straight out of a thriller novel.
It really does. But whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain. The scandal sent shockwaves throughout Europe. Even Pope Alexander VII, who had once been a staunch ally of Christina's, distanced himself from her. He even went so far as to call her a barbarian.
Ouch, that's harsh. How did Christina react to all of this?
In typical Christina fashion, she remained defiant. She continued living life on her own terms, hosting lavish parties, surrounding herself with artists and intellectuals, and even dabbling in a bit of political maneuvering. She may have given up her throne, but she never truly relinquished the stage.
What an incredible life, full of contradictions, triumphs, and tragedies. So, after diving deep into the life of Queen Christina, what's the takeaway? What have we learned?
I think she challenges us to question our assumptions about power, about gender, about what it means to be a historical figure.
She certainly wasn't your average queen.
Not at all. Christina was a woman of contradictions. Brilliant, but impulsive. Devout, yet surrounded by scandal. A queen who ultimately chose to walk her own path, even if it meant defying expectations and courting controversy.
And she reminds us that history isn't just a collection of dusty dates and names in textbooks. It's the story of real people, complex, flawed, utterly fascinating people, just like us.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe Christina's story will inspire us to embrace our own inner rebel, to challenge the status quo, and to never, ever be afraid to stand out from the crowd.
On that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the extraordinary life of Queen Christina of Sweden. And hey, next time you're about to scroll past a Wikipedia page, remember, you never know what hidden treasures you might uncover. Until next time, history fans.